I am honored to have this next guest. I am talking about Karen McDermott. Now, Karen is a publisher, an author, a TEDx speaker, a radio host, Forbes writer, and a proud mum of 6. Yep, I said 6. I mean, I've got 2, and that's crazy. So, how does she do it all with 6 children? You will find out. She talks about that quite deeply in this podcast of how she manages her work-life blend, right? Because she is amazing. She does so many things and she continuously shows up. And I think that's really amazing as well. You know, her motto is, where there is a will, there is a way. And you will absolutely find out her way in this show. So tune in, everyone, for the gorgeous Karen McDermott.
Hey there, I'm Josephine Lancuba, and you're listening to Business, Arts and All That Jazz. I've been immersed in the creative business world and performing arts industry for over 20 years. I know from experience that being an artist, a creative, or running a creative business can be a tough gig, but I'm here to tell you it's possible. I went from having $0 to my name and living below the poverty line, to then living paycheck to paycheck, to finally living a life of comfort, happiness, passion, and even stability. In this podcast, I peel back the curtain and share with you the ups and downs of my journey. Plus, I tap into the minds of creative industry experts to discover their paths to success. I know you have a spark inside of you, that little voice that tells you to reach for the stars. I want to help you step into your limelight, to have the courage to live a life you dream of, a life that you design. So get ready to be entertained and inspired as we talk business, arts, and all that jazz. Hello and welcome to the beautiful Karen McDermott. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Joe. It's so good to be on your podcast.
Yeah, beautiful. Now you're in Perth at the moment. How's that going with lockdowns? Are you guys been affected with the lockdowns at present, or are you free as a bird?
We're free as birds over here. We feel guilty, but we're sending lots of love across the country. But yeah, I think we've only had like 32 days or something like that in lockdown the whole time. We don't even have to wear masks when we go to the shop.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I'm in Sydney, so I think we're in like day 6,070 or something. I don't even know anymore. But yeah.
I talk about lockdown. It's a writer's dream and a mother's nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I met you through the amazing Osmompreneur Network, which you're obviously very familiar with. Absolutely. So sorry, my daughter's at the door. This is lockdown, so I can hear her at the door. Yeah, I met you through that beautiful network, and obviously with Peace Mitchell and Katie Gardner, and obviously through that writing collective project. The Women Changing the World. So we're going to get into that later on. But first, I just want to say, you absolutely amaze me. You do so many things. You're a publisher, author, TEDx speaker, radio host, writer, and you're a mum of 6. So, that's a lot. And I want to know, where did it all start? You obviously do so many things, but where did your journey start?
Oh, it sounds so like lots of, but it's all just life's an adventure, and I love experiences. I love hanging out in the joy of it all, and all of those things you mentioned is where I love, hanging out. So it's amazing how everything flows when you do what you love. So I think it was 12 years ago, 11 years ago, 2010, I wrote my first novel. I started writing children's books in 2008, just after I arrived in Australia. My creative juices started getting flowing. Whatever it was about landing in Western Australia, it just really brought out the creative me. I'd always been creative. I was, before I moved to Australia, I'd done plays and acting and all of that kind of stuff. And I actually taught community drama
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I was a tutor for college, and I used to go to out centres for in mental health organizations and learning difficulties. Such rewarding work, whenever you're bringing the best out of people in a creative sense through drama, which is so fun. So yeah, I did that with the University of Dublin many years ago. It seems like a lifetime ago. I think it was 16 years ago. And my studies are actually in humanities, not in publishing.
Wow.
So that's why I think that a lot of people connect with me, and because I hang out in joy. So where there's joy, there's always success. I love that I'm a mum of 6. I love being a mum. Is the thing I adore in life is being a mum. 6 was not planned, but I'm the eldest of 6, so it's kind of my number.
Wow.
And everybody talks about, how do you do it? And I'm like, well, I have it more together with 6 than I did with 2. And don't ask me how. I don't know. It just is what it is. And that's it.
I mean, that was going to lead me into the next point, which is, I mean, we often talk so much about, especially women in business, this work-life balance, or this illusion of work-life balance. And I like to call it my work-life blend. How do you manage to fit it all in?
Blend is a good word. I like blend rather than balance. Mine is definitely blended. And I'm always in the energy of what I prioritize things. So if my family need me, that's where I am. If I need to be present in work, that's where I am. Because work and my authors are my family as well. So it's all encompassing. And whenever I feel like I'm giving a lot and need to fill my cup, well, I step back and you won't see me for a few days or whatever, and I'll go and do things that fill my cup, which is usually hanging out with my kids or going to the beach. But I'm really mindful of that self-care aspect of being a giver, of showing up in the world and doing, people say that I'm busy, but I'm not busy. I'm productive. I like the word productive. Because I do everything with loving intention. And when you do something with loving energy, it makes it happen all the faster. It makes it happen at the highest vibration possible. So that's why so many things happen around me, is because I am showing up authentically and putting loving intention into everything. And it works. So
I think I read somewhere that you teach that sort of mindset. Is that true of what you were
yes, and
talking
it's
about?
funny because Mc Dermott is the entrepreneur, the publisher. And after I wrote my first novel in 30 days back in 2010, first novel I ever wrote, but it poured out of me. And it was a catalyst into publishing because I had a negative self-publishing experience, but as a catalyst into publishing and my desire to have stories get told, that's the humanitarian in me. Because when stories connect, they can help heal, they educate, they empower, they motivate. And even whenever a child is sitting on your lap and you're reading them a children's book, that connection, that's a memory, So those things they bring forward with them in life. It's a beautiful foundation for life. So that's why I'm so passionate about story across all genres, So I always focus on the positives, sickeningly so for so many people. But being positive takes work. I work on it every day.
Absolutely.
There's days where I don't feel so positive, but I just, I Netflix those days away.
Yeah.
And then, but it's just life. We're all human. But positivity is a choice, and it's something that you work on, you choose every day. And
Isn't
that's
that
such a
amazing though, that you can opt to Netflix a day away? And that's the power of, entrepreneurialism. That's the power of having choice when it comes to your days.
That is why I have been offered so many corporate jobs, and now, I could be doing the 9 to 5 and I could, but that's not how I want to do life. I want to do life on my terms. So school holidays are next week and I'm going to be hanging out with my kids for 2 weeks. I write during that time because it's a beautiful, creative time for me. I'm in that mindset. I'm in a childish mindset. We go ice skating every few days because that's what my kids love to do. We go to the beach, but ultimately I'll wake up in this beautiful energy and I'll write at 5 a.m. in the morning, and you feel so alive, so aligned. And so that energy going into my writing, I write on it all the time. There's the miracle of intent behind me, the power of knowing. All of those books are, and the reason why those books were born, and I share my 7 life principles as KP Weaver, because that's my maiden name. That's where all of that comes from. So I write as Karen Weaver because I want to keep the writer and the publisher, the entrepreneur, but they've started to come together, and now I'm being called into business arenas to speak on the power of knowing, because you can be so successful when in business, when you embrace these kinds of universal life principles. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, congratulations on your recent TEDx talk, by the way.
Thank
I
you.
watched a couple of videos from you in that space. And for anyone at home, if you can YouTube it, just, look up Karen McDermott TEDx and you'll find it. I actually watched recently the one that you did in 2020, and you spoke about own your story, change your life. So and that was really driving home that whole the power of storytelling, the healing in storytelling. Is that why you write? What drives you to that?
Oh, I love that you went here. So the reason why I wrote my first novel was because I had an epiphany moment, and I speak about that in my first TEDx talk. And
Mm,
my second TEDx talk is under Karen Weaver, so that's where you'll find that one. But the one that I talked about, the power of story, is so important because it's such a catalyst into who I am now. And when I embraced who I was and shared my stories with others, not only did I heal myself, I healed other people as well. And because
yeah.
I had a really tough time in life. I'd went through post-traumatic stress for over a year after an incident happened in my home that shifted me. I actually remember coming out of my body energetically and being beside myself. And I was always a quite resilient person, but at that time in my life, I was giving so much and my cup was empty. So when this incident happened, I had nothing left to fuel any kind. I was below the bar.
Yeah.
So I hang out way above the bar now. So if anything ever happens, you never fall below the bar. So that's
Yeah.
it's something that I do intentionally. It's also so much more fun and enjoyable. And then I can pour into other people when they need it as well. So, and I have 6 children to pour into as well as my
Yeah.
community.
What's the
So,
age range of those kids, by the way? How old are these children?
eldest is 25, youngest is 6.
Oh, so this is you still have little ones.
Oh, I have 5 still at home in our home from 15 to 6. Yeah.
Oh.
My eldest, who's 25, works for me now. He got the
Yeah.
publishing bug, and his girlfriend it works for me as well in the creative sense as well. So that's a really beautiful thing to be able to, for your own children to find their calling in what you do as well, and them
Yeah.
just love it. Because Dylan, who's my eldest, was in engineering and enjoyed it, showed up every day, done his work, but he was getting up at like 4 a.m. and he was
Mm.
tired and even so, his work-life balance wasn't there, or his blend, as I say. But he he then broke his foot. Everything happens for a reason. He broke his foot, and
Yeah.
because he wasn't under contract, he wasn't going to get paid. So I was like, "Well, you're going to be off for 3 months. Come and work for me. I need someone to do." He's really good with websites and stuff. So he came to me, and that was 18 months ago, and he was supposed to go back to his other job, and he's like, "Do you want me to stay?" And I was like, "Yes." And so he's been working for me ever since. So that's
Oh,
beautiful. I love
beautiful.
that so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so when I wrote my first novel, I wrote because after my PTSD, my wake up call was a double miscarriage. Now
Mm,
it was harrowing, and because when you have PTSD, you don't feel anything, you're numb to life. But
mm,
when I got the wake up call of a double miscarriage, it was drawn out over 2 weeks. It was horrible. But I cried. I actually felt emotion, and I cried buckets of
oh,
tears, and
yeah.
they flooded out of me for the babies I lost, but all because I'd seen them on screen. So I've seen them, these little heartbeats and stuff. So I cried for them, but I also cried for the year that I lost as well, because I was a
Yeah.
mum of 2 boys then as well. So but it everything happened for a reason. That happened in Ireland, and then once that happened, something shifted. And when I started to feel like everything started to flow again, because in that whole 2 years previous, our car would always break down. We had money issues.
Mm,
Nothing ever went. Everything was a challenge. But when this happened, this catalyst happened, and I woke up and started to feel and started to dream again. everything started to fall into place. We ended up getting married. We got our visas to come to Australia.
Yeah.
We finished building our house in Ireland, and albeit we locked it up and moved to Australia. We got pregnant again straight away with our rainbow baby. We moved to Australia. We had our daughter. It was just what happened in that 1 year wouldn't happen in 10 years for some people. And then once I came here and found this, and then the epiphany moment was when I was watching The View, and The View would never be on in our house, but it would be Goldberg. Because I always wanted to know, why me? Why did I have a double miscarriage? And because I have two healthy boys already. And then Whoopi Goldberg had a celebrity TV couple in the show, and she said to them, she just stopped the show. The woman was pretty distraught, and they had a miscarriage on TV and stuff. And she's turned her back to the camera, and she just said, "I'm going to tell you something that I tell all of my friends who this happens to. This was a visitor that came to connect with you, to tell you to get on to the right path in life. And when you do, your gift will come." And I was like, "Oh, that is why." I wasn't on the right path. I was stuck in, PTSD. I was really just in the trenches of life, at a low point, and I wasn't coming out of it. And even though I call it my cocoon period, I'd done a lot of inner work and stuff. I hadn't awoken, I hadn't come out of my cocoon. So I got my wake up call, and that was the double miscarriage. But I was blessed because I took action straight away. I shifted back onto the right path, and I got pregnant again straight away, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
But all of that realization of the potential of where our mindset is and how that affects our experience of life started to really come full force to me at that time. And so I had to write what I learned. And it had to be in a novel. So I got the call to write a novel, and I did it in 30 days. And it was a catalyst into publishing. So I've written over 40 books now.
Yeah, that's actually what I was about to say. You've written over 40 books. I mean, that's insane to me. I have to admit, because obviously we hear so much about how long it takes to write a book. And as you know, I wrote a chapter in The Women, Changing the World. And just that one chapter was a labor of love. I can't imagine what it's like to write 40 books. And am I right by saying you wrote that over the last decade or decade?
10 years, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the thing. It's amazing because I hang out in writing and publishing all the time. So this is just second nature to me. But one of the big things with that is, Joe, is that with writing, there's just so many blocks, mental blocks, because like I didn't love English at school because I didn't have a connection with my English teacher.
Yeah.
So I'm not the best writer in the world, but that's what editors are for. And I don't dismiss being a really great writer. It's something I work on all the time.
Yeah.
But I treasure editors. So I do what I can. I open up my heart and I pour what I need to for my readers. So it just comes out of me. So I've written that one first book that I wrote ended up being a trilogy. They are not literary novels by any sense, but I didn't aspire to be that. I just wanted to write stories that connected with people and helped them heal. So first one's about miscarriage. The second one's called The Wish Giver. It's about be careful what you wish for because you might just get it. Some people aspire for things and want things, but don't understand what they have to sacrifice or don't make room for it in their lives before so something shifts out. So just being mindful of that. The third one's called The Memory Taker, and it goes into, whenever someone's got dementia or Alzheimer's, you can't see them on the outside, but they're still on the inside, but they're doing the inner work before they move on and things like that. So it's just, I don't know where they come out of. They just came to me and I wrote them. So but
how
they're
often
the
do you
creative
write?
books.
Like how often are you actually writing? To have 40 books over 10 years, I mean,
Yeah.
you must be
Well,
writing
I want
every
to put it
week.
in perspective because I have 6 children, so a lot of them are children's books. But then you're working with illustrators. One of the first things I did, even before I wrote the novel, we had Mama Mac's homemade children's books. So this was even before I was a publisher. Me and my kids used to hang out around the table, do pictures for them. We still have them. It's like a collection of these 30 books. Most of them are not published. And we drew the pictures for them. We printed them off on this special printer we bought, and we put them together as books, and we just shared them with our friends and family and stuff like that. And if it was somebody's birthday coming up, we'd write them in a book and draw pictures in it. it's in the archives of our family history.
That is so
Where most of them will
special.
stay, but there
Yeah.
has been some that's gone out, like Australian Animal Walkabout. We hooked up with the Rosie Lees, who I met through Osmums, and she illustrated a few books. And Australian Animal Walkabout is across Australia. Like I walked into Dimmocks in Margaret River, and there it was sitting on the shelf. And that's a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
So yeah. So we've had some great success with some of them. But I just love creating and putting it out there and knowing that they'll find their place is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Okay. Now, look, obviously, we hear about all the ways that we should show up as creatives, as business owners. Um, Writing a book is something that everyone talks about. You know, you should write a book, you should write a book. What would you say to someone who's never written a book and is like, I'm going to write a book? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, don't overthink it.
Okay.
People think themselves out of it, or
Yeah.
create so for me, for my first novel, I was not a writer. I'd written a few blogs for a website, that was it. And that was just circumstantial. It wasn't, I was their organic writer, and organic was the word. It was whatever
Yeah.
was coming through me they were going to get. But it was I was open to the possibility and the belief that it was possible through a friend of mine who was actually writing her personal story to heal, which was never to be published and still isn't published. But she had written 50,000 words, and I was like, 50,000 words? That's a lot of words. It just blew my mind.
Yeah.
So even the thought of setting out to do that. But it was a few weeks later that NaNoWriMo came up on my radar, and that was 2 days. It was 2 days before it started, and that was 2 days before is when I seen the Whoopi Goldberg thing, and to set the intention to write a novel. But what I did was I broke it down because it was 1,665 words a day for a month. So breaking it down into digestible pieces was doable for me. It's like a double blog. That's what I thought of it as,
Yeah.
because a blog is 750 words. So if I write a double blog, I didn't think too much into was the content going to keep flowing. I was
Yeah.
open to it, and I also thought the first draft is a first draft. It's a you get it out. You do as much prep as you can, but you get it out. So I wrote down 20 potential chapters with 20 potential titles for them, and what I thought the book would happen, come out with. But it was totally different by the end. But I allowed the characters. But that was a fictional novel. Now, 10 years later, if I'm telling someone, if you're going to write a business, a nonfiction book, I would say to work on your framework first. Really know the essence of your book. And if you're having problems with that, write your introduction. That usually gets you there.
Yeah.
Your title as well is usually the essence of your book. And really work on the framework. So have your chapters. That's what your chapters are. Work on your framework and then write to that. And write what your readers need to read. Don't draw it out for a word count. Don't cut it down to, for word count. Write what your readers need to read. And that is usually what you needed to read 5 years previous or 2 years, whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah, so you would be
So
your
consider
ideal.
your reader. And also, I love that approach of like bite-size amounts in each session. So you don't have to think of it as this epic, 50,000 worder. You just need to go, right, I'm writing a blog today. And then the next
Because
day I'm going to
your
write another
brain
blog.
goes, no, you're not. No,
Yeah.
50,000 words too much for me to comprehend. Whereas if it's 1,500 words, your brain will go,
Mm.
okay, we got this. Let's see what comes through. But the big thing is not to block the creative flow.
Yes, and not to overthink it. I love that. I mean, look, I wear many hats like yourself, different hats,
Mhm.
but many hats. And one of them is being a
Yes.
talent agent. And actually, last night I received a message at 10 o'clock at night outside of my boundaries, but that's okay because this actor was particularly stressed about an audition the next day. And like, look, I'm not going to self-tape this audition. I just don't feel prepared. Blah, blah. And I said, you're overthinking it. I
Yes.
said, you got this. Just do whatever you can and get it in. And she
Yeah.
did. And it was great. And, overthinking it. Geez, that really does
It's the
squash.
showing up that's just the
Yeah.
success. So we can all think ourselves out of things, and we all like. I
Mhm.
talk in front of hundreds of people now, whereas I wouldn't have spoken in front of two.
Yeah.
But once you go and take yourself out of the equation and go on the mission base, what is it you want to achieve? And you want to be I call it nerve sighted. It's two words together, where you're nervous and excited at the same time. But that
Yeah.
feeling is the most alive feeling ever, and I don't, so many people fear it. But that feeling actually gives you the adrenaline to perform. So that is why people fear it so much, but it's the best feeling because you will perform at your best whenever you have it before you go on stage
Yeah,
or
I love
before
that,
you show up.
nerve sighted. I'm gonna
Nerve
steal that
sighted.
one. Look, you talk about showing up. You show up in so many ways. I mean, you show up on your radio show. You're delivering best selling books. You've got your socials. You're constantly online. You're doing all the things. What motivates you to continue showing up? Because we know to make an impact, we have to show up. That's what we're told, right? How do you define that? How do you show
One
up?
thing I'm going to confess is that there's no strategy in how I show up whatsoever. There's really no
Yeah.
strategy. I am showing up to serve. So if I think I have
Mm.
some content to deliver, and like we've both been doing a course together with the amazing Tina Harris,
Yes.
and that's to learn to show up even better for
Yeah.
people. But the content that I'll be producing for those videos is going to be value for people. So if
Yeah.
I'm going to show up, whenever I'm interviewing an author and doing a book launch, I'm showing up to showcase their amazing book. If I'm doing a book launch for myself and showing up, it's because I know that my books, whenever, especially these 7 life principle books, whenever they reach the people they're meant to read, it's going to change their lives. So I show up on the radio station. Is called Monday Motivation with Karen and Ali,
Love
the amazing Ali Ballas.
it.
And we are very high energy, but to give our community, it's a community-based radio station, and we show up every single Monday to motivate people and share, and even by being on the show and sharing pictures
Mm.
and things like that. And all of our interviews are on YouTube and things. But we meet amazing people, and we get motivated by doing the show as well. So
Yeah.
it's every time you see me online is just me showing up to inspire others and motivate others too. Because I work in a no excuse policy, Joe. If I can do it
Mm.
as a mom of 6 who has 3 publishing houses, and I achieve a lot of personal goals as well. And if I can do that, anybody can.
Yeah.
And the key to that is to not overthink things, go into a state of flow. And that is where, so prioritizing joy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm just reading a quote here. You're known to say, when time and circumstance align, magic happens. I love that. Tell me about a time that this might have rang true for you.
Oh my God, I use this all the time because,
Yeah.
and it's one thing I had to learn was to be patient because you can make something happen now, but if you want it to happen at its fullest potential, you will plant the seed, nurture it to where you can bring it, and then let it shoot through the ground. So that's when you plant seeds in fertile soil, then they will, and that whole analogy is in the miracle of intent. So it's setting those intentions, and letting, bringing them to where you can. So that's true connections, but genuinely, like me and you have a connection. We genuinely adore what we each other do. So if ever there's an opportunity to help each other or to do something together, then you will do it. And that's how
Yeah.
I show up in life. I connect with people who are on the same values based, same vibration, and enjoy what they do as much as I do. So that kind of, then I'm surrounded by that all of the time. So there's no room for negativity to shine in. And when
So
it
true.
does, it dissipates pretty fast because that's what I choose. I'm choosing to surround myself in that energy. So
Yeah, and I think that's been a big thing for me, especially actually over the last 12 months. I've done a lot of intentional work to surround myself with positive, like-minded people. And it's not to say I'm not like, ditching the haters or anything, or the people in my life,
no,
but I've started, simple things. If I'm on social media and I'm seeing someone that I see gives me a bit of a negative impact when I look at their social media page, I unfollow them. If I have a friend in my life who's not really a friend, I've started to pull back and go, that's okay. I don't need to force that relationship. Just things like that. So intentionally creating
Those
a positive circle.
I really feel for people who come with negativity because they don't know the joy of life.
Mm,
But by me showing up and maybe they're just, I because I'm so sickeningly positive, it can, and if somebody's having a bad day or if somebody's not in a good place in life, it can just go, oh, but I know at some point that will ripple into them and say, well, Karen chooses to be positive. She has a lot of success around her, but that's because, so maybe, you may not know now just by showing up and being you and being, focusing on your path and your choices. We've got to focus on ourselves first because that ripples out to everyone around us,
yeah,
like I'm showing my girls, um, that you don't have to compromise yourself to achieve success. So once you align with your values, and being a hands-on mom is a value and something I treasure, but somebody else may value something else more. But once you align your intentions and your values, then success is so much more fulfilling because you don't have to compromise any of yourself for it. And sometimes that
mhm,
knocks people's nose out of joint, but that's nothing to do with me. That's their
yeah,
problem because they can learn. And I know that even if they get a negative reaction, they can learn something about themselves in that. So
yeah,
it's all about choice. And some people haven't awakened to the fact of their potential. And that's so sad. But one of my callings in life is to help people awaken. So that sometimes comes with discomfort, because whenever you
yes,
realize that you have to maybe unlearn some things about yourself to become happy and joyful in life, it's an uncomfortable time. But people, if they're open to it, and it's amazing. But like I don't get many haters. I had one once, and they were going all
we've
out,
all
but
had
I
at
just
least
love them
one.
to
Come
death.
on.
I love them to death. I was like, listen, they were on the Serenity Press page, and I was like, the Serenity Press page is for Serenity. Please, if you have anything to say, please PM me. I'm happy to hear what you need to say. There's no problem there. Because obviously most of the time people want to be heard or they just want a bit of disruption or whatever. I just love them to death and they
I
go
love that
away.
you got trolled on a Serenity page, and that
No, I
is
know I had one once.
priceless. That is priceless.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's circle back to the book, The Women
Yes.
Changing the World. Now, as you know, I'm one of the authors in that, collaborative writing space. For everyone listening, maybe just let them know your involvement and why you are a part of this book. What
Yeah.
made you go with this project?
Well, Osmompreneur is very close to my heart, and what they do for women in business, like I wouldn't be where I am today had I not learned from the people in their community,
Mm.
and that was since 2015. So I grew so much since there. I won the Women Will Change the World award in 2020, which is amazing. But I work very closely with Peace and Katie with all of their publishing projects now. So the
Mm-hmm.
Women Will Change the World one, I was like, can I share my story too, please?
Yeah.
Because when we show up and share our stories, it changes the world, not just for the people and for each author and around them, but for
Mm-hmm.
our readers and everyone around them as well. So everyone in this book, like I'm in awe of the authors that are in this book. Like Joe, whenever you look at the group and all of the people who have showed up to share their story, it's
Yes.
like you
Yes.
feel the power in this
Exciting.
book. You feel the power in the cover of this book. Like this book is going to have a big impact, not just nationally but globally, because there's stories that are going to resonate with people. They're going to shift people, and they're going to really change their perspective. And it
Mhm.
is sharing our stories.
And I think when I first, um, I submitted to be a part of the project, and when I initially saw the title, and I wanted to take part, but then I wasn't really. I was a little bit scared, to be honest, because I thought, oh, what will people think? if if I'm a part of something that says I change the world, like who am I? And
Isn't
that
it
was really
cool?
something interesting, because that was a process I had to go through during my application. And then I realized that just by sharing my story, like you said, is a part of, the change and impact that I make. I mean, my whole life's work is, creating happy and fulfilled young people through experiences, like theatrical experiences, whatever it may be. And there's power in that, bringing people a smile, bringing joy to their day. There's so much to be said. But yeah, I do find that it's interesting because, my initial thought was, I'm not a doctor, I'm not saving lives, you know?
But you
But
are having a ripple effect in the world because
mm,
what you do impacts everyone around who benefits, but also everyone around them. So whenever you think of that drop in the ocean, that ripples out. So absolutely, you are changing the world because that's and that's one of the I was talking to someone yesterday, and they were talking about there's no room for modesty when it comes to
mm,
success because you just got to own it.
yeah,
And if you think too much into women changing the world, oh my God, have I the audacity to say that? Hell
yes,
yes, we have the audacity to say that because women especially coming together, in this book, individually we're all amazing, but coming together in the book, wow, that's powerful,
yes,
and everyone
yeah,
is having an impact in their world and in the world of others. So we need more of that. We need more women owning that because, like, I'm a 70s girl. And in the 70s, well, my parents didn't. My parents were like, come on, Karen, show us what you got, show us what you're made of, and give me platforms to shine. I was always encouraged. But many people who grew up in the 70s were told to, be quiet and,
mm,
and don't be so, out there. Just, find your place, stay there, and don't shine, sort of thing, which
yes,
is such a tragedy. Be seen and not heard, kind of thing. And whereas there's like my kids, I have six, and
yeah,
they're all so different, but it's like mayhem in our house because they're all allowed to be who they are and find themselves and,
hmm,
all of that kind of stuff. And four girls, can you imagine?
yes, I know. I mean, I've got one girl, one boy. It's funny
Yes.
because I come from school of hard knocks, as I comfortably say now that I've grown into a 38-year-old woman.
Yes.
Something I didn't talk about in my, even just 2 years ago, I wouldn't have spoken publicly about that. But yeah, I do think when I look at my kids and I see the way I grew up, which was really, home of domestic violence, all that sort of stuff. And then to see my children, and they're just so happy and content, and
Yes.
they're just sitting there, they're playing. And I just think, wow, I've done this. I've created such a better life for my kids than I could ever have imagined. I'm getting a little emotional about that, but
Mm.
it's just, that is changing the world. I did it for them, not just myself. I mean, yes, for myself, but for everyone around me. So yeah, it
It's
is
the gift of
powerful.
unconditional love, Joe.
Yeah.
This is what I said. I was gifted the gift of unconditional love whenever I was younger. And I had the freedom I was the eldest of six, so I had more freedom than my sister who's coming behind me because I was very curious and I was allowed to go and explore and always had the safety net of my parents to fall back on should something, but it didn't. But you know what I mean? You had the freedom
Yep.
to go and explore and find yourself and become the person that you are because each of us may be born into families, but we are individual in that family and still have our own
Yeah.
paths too. But in a family, it's not thought of like that sometimes because you are managing things. But unconditional love doesn't cost anything, and
Mm,
it's the biggest gift that you can give your child, and because there's safety in that,
yeah.
because there's confidence in that, because there's everything in that, and like life out there in the big bad world can be tough, but when you have that safety net to come back to,
Yeah.
and so that's why it's so tragic that whenever and there's so many cases of this, if whenever home is not that sanctuary,
Mhm.
it's really tough for those kids because you don't understand what unconditional love is. You don't
Yes.
understand what that safe space is,
Yeah,
and
and
it's a beautiful space to
definitely
grow
have
in.
that safe space here. I mean, my kids, they do come out with all of like just this massive personalities, and I just think, oh, I can see myself in them, and I think, oh, I didn't have the freedom to be that when I was little, and it's so beautiful to
You
watch.
broke the mold, though.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
yeah.
You broke the mold. You didn't let it go on for another generation. You broke
No,
the mold. Beautiful,
no way, no how. Look, I was, my next question was going to say what makes the book stand out, but I think we've covered that well and short. I
Yes.
mean, obviously, all of that beautiful storytelling and the power of women coming together, that is powerful in itself. Now, you were obviously involved in Back Yourself, which was the previous release, with
I might have it here.
Katie.
Yes.
And
Um,
you got it there?
I had it yesterday. Where did I put it? I think I
I
was
loved
reading.
reading Back Yourself.
Oh, I did.
There it is. Woo woo. There it is. Beautiful pink cover. Very
It is.
different to the new cover, I have to say.
It is. It's a business book,
Yes, I
so
was
they're
going to ask,
totally
what's the
different.
difference between why? So you've gone from this business book into something completely different. Why the shift?
So this is Osmond's, so the women's business school. So we done the business book,
Mm,
and we're doing another one for March 2022, another business type book.
yeah,
But the Women Changing the World and this, where Peace and Katie have their podcast, which is Women Changing the World,
yeah,
the power of story. And so that is why this book had to come out. So, whereas the business books will be happening every year,
yeah,
the Women Changing the World is a standalone book that's just it's so
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
it's a good one to be part of.
Um, is there anything, extra exciting about the new release that you want to share with everyone? You mentioned international. What does that look like? Like what's in the pipeline there?
Yeah, well, KMD Books is one of my publishing presses, and that's where we publish all of the Women's Business School books. And we have just secured a huge US deal, which is amazing. So it means that we have wider distribution, wider opportunities to get the book into the hands of readers. And I think that Women Change the World absolutely fits into that bar. So yeah, and we go on, every book goes on a journey, Joe. That's the thing. Not
Mm,
only is everyone in the book, that's a huge audience as it is,
yeah.
to have that impact with that. But also then to, whenever you've got the distribution out to those channels. So I know that the Women Change the World book, because it's so diverse, it's just really got stories from all walks of life. It's going to be very powerful. So mhm.
Who inspires you? I ask this to all my guests, and I love this question because it's always very interesting and varied response. Who inspires you?
I always answer me in 20 years' time, because I'm always striving to be the best version of myself.
Mm,
So, and it's funny because when I went to the Mission Beach retreat with Peace and Katie, and I don't usually meditate because writing's my meditation, and that's where things come to me.
yeah.
Um, and I done a meditation, and it was a meditation about going into so somewhere to meet your future self. I think I was 25 years older or something. And I actually seen myself and had a conversation with her, and I was like, okay, that's cool. So, I always aspire to be the best version of myself. I will always be growing, but having fun along the way. I don't take myself too seriously, but I do take what I do very seriously, because it's a privilege to join people on their journey to get their books out into the world. And for some people, it's more of a painful process, because I know for me, writing my first novel, it was like so therapeutic, but it brought things to the surface that had been hidden for a while that I didn't know were
Yeah.
there. So you have to be very mindful of that. So it's such an
Mm,
honor to join people on that journey, and also on the journey then to help books get out into the world. So there's so much more to it than just holding a book in your hand. It's a journey of self-development. So you have to
yes.
be very mindful of that. And I know whenever I published my first book, the publishers were not mindful of that whatsoever. So that is why it took the goodness out of the journey. So that's why I'm very mindful. And that was the intention I set, that if
Are
I
there many
am a
women
publisher,
in publishing?
there is a few in Australia. There's some amazing women in Australia doing amazing work. And I actually train women as well, or not just women, but men, to set up their own publishing house. Because, people say, what, you're training the competition? I'm like, no, I don't think of it as competition. The more people helping stories get told, the better, because me and my team can only do so much. The more people helping it. So that's why I try to, and also share my values base, that really, it's a privilege to join someone on the journey to share their story. And there's so many stories going untold because of the people don't believe that they have it in them, or that anybody wants to read their story. Well, absolutely. You are the only person that can share your story. You are the only person that can share your book. Whether it's a children's book, because nobody else has your perspective, non-fiction, there's no competition. And when it comes to books, I call it, there's more potential for collaboration than there is competition. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what's next for Karen?
Oh, there's a few things brewing. I wrote a book, this is for me and my personal, like obviously my publishing presses are growing, which is wonderful. The team's growing, which is fabulous. But personally, I'm actually grabbing more time for my own projects and hanging out with the kids as well. So that's the joy of when you build something and give your all in. It comes to this time where you just get to go into cruise control, because every year I set intentions for the year, what I want to achieve, and I've surpassed them now. So I'm kind of in cruise control for the rest of the year. And then 2022 is going to be a very big year, because 22 is my number. I live in number 22. I'm 44, so that's, double 22. And we're going into 2022, and these books are about to go wild, because I'm going to be featured in a really big magazine next year.
Yeah.
Also, these books will all be finished, the 7 in the series, and a book to be written called The Soulful Entrepreneur. And you'll see it on my Facebook page, but I have to pull it down because the publisher in the US that I'm working with wants to release it into the US market first at the end of next year. So there's going to be a big thing around that to introduce my writing into the US market, which is really cool, because it means that it will what I do, my principles for life, and that, that allow me to live my best life. Like, God, if I was pushing up daisies now, it'd be an amazing story. But I still have chapters to write. And I connect with the most beautiful people in life, and I've had, it's just amazing what I have had to achieve. And I do stop and smell the roses all the time, but I love, it's like, what's the next adventure? Or let's build upon this. And so I'm always striving to create bigger platforms for my authors, but I also benefit from that as well, because I am an author as well. See?
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so if people are interested in what you do or want to find you, where's the best place for them to go? And we'll make sure we pop that in the show notes as well.
Absolutely. Well, if you want to check out my books and my author's books, that's what I always say, come and check out, because there's so many amazing stories have come to me to get published. Stories that can change your life. Okay. So if you go to kmdbooks.com, go to mmhpress.com, and for our folklore and fairy tales and the Duchess's books are all at serenitypress.org.
Beautiful. And for the pre-sale of The Women Changing the World, you can grab that on my website, everyone that's listening in, and that's josephinelancuba.com. So just go to the book section. That's going on pre-sale. And then when is it going, when is it gung-ho, the actual release date?
Yeah, we're releasing early December for Christmas. So it's going to be the best gift. The books make great gifts, everybody. And because books they are the best gifts, because you can wrap them up nicely. They're not too expensive, but they can also, if somebody's in lockdown, a book can change their lives.
Absolutely. And can you just share with everyone why pre-sale is so important? I think this is a good thing for people to know, because they're like, oh, I'll just hang out and wait. Why should people go to pre-sale and pre-purchase a book?
Well, there's two reasons. First, whenever you are going to set the intention to buy a book, you want to tick that list and just know it's on its way to you. And then secondly, just in case the book sells out, at least you're getting it before everyone. And if
Yeah.
you're getting it from Joe, you'll get a signed copy, I'm quite sure, which will
Yes.
be, so much more to treasure. So definitely go and
Yeah.
grab the pre-orders because it means you're going to have it. And be ahead of the game. So yeah,
Yeah.
tick that box
Beautiful.
and get your copy.
Love it. All right. Thank you so much for today. I really appreciate it. All those links we talked about will be in the show notes for everyone listening. Thank you, Karen. You are a gem, and I'm sure I'll see you very soon.
Bye,
Okay.
everyone.
Take care. Bye.
If you enjoyed listening and would like to hear more, be sure to click subscribe. If you're really feeling the love, share us with your friends. To work with me or to simply find out more about the magic of creativity, arts and business, head to my website josephinelancuba.com, and you can find me on socials. I also have a book that I've co-written with a bunch of amazing entrepreneurial women called The Women Changing the World, and you can grab a copy of that at josephinelancuba.com/books. Thanks for listening.